everyone. Hello, friends. I see you in the chat. Hello. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Romance Class podcast. Romance Class is a community of Filipino authors of romance in English. Since 2013, our community has helped over 80 authors publish over 100 books. We also have a podcast, which is what you are watching or listening to right now. And it has been a space to explore more of what we can do with the books and what we can discuss with the authors. This podcast is produced by Tanya Arpa and Mina V. Esguerra and is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Before we start, we would like to remind everyone to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Head over to kilig.pub/YouTube, hit the subscribe button, and also click on the bell to be notified when a new video is coming up. My name is Mina V. Esguerra, and I'm hosting the episode today. This episode is about rich people. As contemporary romance authors, we definitely are familiar with the archetype and tropes. Philippine media has so many rich people romance stories that some people grow up not knowing anything else. Our movies, TV shows, and books have explored this dynamic for more than a century. It's not at all surprising that being steeped in all of that, when we start writing romance, it starts showing up in our work. That's not a reason or an excuse. I'm just stating what is. So whenever we start, and it's not that romance writers are never called out on this. By the way, whenever we started writing the rich person, much more the rich person in a romance, be it in school or a workshop or just posting it as a hobby on Wattpad, we romance authors who are Filipino are called out for it, for being cliche, for not thinking it through, and everything else associated with why write rich people. Speaking for myself, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the criticism. It's a fair critique, and hearing it early on in my writing life and not dismissing it helped me as I continued writing. So, in the spirit of asking this question being a helpful exercise, we've invited in this episode authors in our community who've written some rich people into their romance stories. Welcome to the podcast, Ansela, Suzette, Carla, and Bianca. So, this is what we'll do. I'll ask each author to introduce themselves and talk about the book that has the rich person that we will be discussing in our podcast today. How about let's start with Carla? Hi, Carla.
Hi, Mina. It's like a class recitation again. Hi, friends in the chat. My name is Carla de Guzman. I'm a romance author, and I guess most, if not all, of my characters, my books feature at least one rich character in it. But in particular, I think today my story, How She Likes It, would be the most appropriate because my main character, Isabel, is an heiress, a CEO-S, and she also runs her own company, her own makeup company. And because the Alta girls are all here, present and accounted for, of course, can't forget the Aritz family from the Alta High Society Romance Anthology. So my characters in particular for that anthology are Logan and Ali. So Ali works at the foundation with Doña Carmen, and Logan is the youngest grandson of the Aritz family who has his own flavored French fries business, which sounds familiar, but yes.
Thank you, Carla. Next up, Suzette.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Suzette de Borja, and I've written several characters, and they range from royalty to the latest, the last one, which was the Alta High Society romance. So yeah, I've written several books and stories with rich characters. So that's it for now.
Thank you, Suzette. Uh, Bianca, you're up next.
Hi everyone, this is Bianca Mori. Which of my books have rich characters? Most of them. So, my one night series is sort of a high society milieu as well. So, the first book features an old, rich family girl who has to find a way to save her family's dying finances by marrying into a new rich but richer family. And then the second book, One Night at the Penthouse Suite, features an heiress as well, Cora Siacho, and the normal guy who works in a BPO middle class like you and me that she falls in love with and is in a relationship with at the start of the book. And of course, there's Alta, the OG romance class high society anthology, and my characters there are Natalia. So she is your token artist in the rich family who returns to the Philippines after getting her heart broken and meeting her college best friend again for the party. So yon.
Thank you, Bianca. And I guess for the first time on on the panel in the podcast, we have Ansela Corsino.
Hello, my name is Ansela Corsino. By the way, I'm also a producer on this podcast. Ansela is my pen name, it's my author name. I'm producer Tanya. Hi. So I'm here every every episode. So as Ansela Corsino, I write actually pretty much everything that I've published. My glasses. Pretty much everything I've published are about like the using uses the billionaire trope, particularly well the Finnish stuff because I write serial. The Finnish stuff is my LA Players series, which starts with the Billionaire's Prize, which I started serializing in 2015 on Wattpad, and there are like 3 books in that series now. So yes, that is my that is my work more or less.
Thank you, Ansela, aka Tanya, aka the voice of God in this podcast. So she's actually here every week, every episode that we do this, but as producer Tanya. Okay, so ako rin pala, I wrote a rich person book. So I'd like to talk about that also. So I wrote a book called Love Your Frenemies. So it is about my main pairing there are people who grew up in sort of like a country club setting. So that's a so the lead here, Kimmy, and her love interest Manolo are sort of childhood frenemies who grew up seeing each other every weekend during Sunday lunch at the country club where their families are members. So if you're not familiar with that specific set, it's like a social dynamic of people who have a lot of money and their friends grow up together, and it's not necessarily something they enjoy, or they probably don't even like each other, but they're the ones who understand each other's problems and the kind of life that they have to live, because they probably have similar issues replicated in each of their families. So it is a very specifically like isolated book in that the problems that these two rich people have are it was fun. So it was fun to write about problems that I don't have and no one else ever has. but yeah, so that's my book, Love Your Frenemies, that I may be mentioning at some point during the discussion. So let's start the discussion. I have a program, and then we can take your questions in the Q&A. Definitely, please ask your questions. Thank you so much to our friends who are here. And yes, people were saying, somebody was said, I think Chris said Miren B. Flores. We wish she could have joined this panel. We have a friend named Miren who has written a book called Prep and Prejudice. Definitely check it out. It's also about like crazy rich people with their own island or whatever. And all of that. So that is also a very specific insight into a very specific kind of rich person, and definitely check that out. Okay, so my first question for everybody and for all of us to discuss is why? Why have we done this? Why have we written rich people into our books? Does anyone want to start?
I'll start with the easiest answer
Yes,
because
Carla.
and the answer is because I want to. Kasi like I feel like writing rich characters eliminates like half of your problems. Kasi their problems are usually so shallow and almost funny in a way na that parang I can't believe this is your problem.
Okay.
Like for how she likes it in particular, the main problem of the rich character, si Isabel, is that she is in a CEO race against her best friend. And it's like, girl, is that really a problem? And I think writing stuff, being able to write stuff like that makes it funnier in a sense, because it doesn't feel real, but also still relatable somehow. So that kind of balance. And like you're eliminating half the logistical problems in your life when you write rich characters. So yeah.
Thank you, Carla. Does anyone have anything to add to explain themselves?
I'd like to add to what Carla said. So for me,
Yes.
the with rich people are not like us, but they're also kind of like us. So they're not like us in the sense that they have all of these resources, but they're also like us. Their problems tend to stem from the same source. So for example, sa one night at the penthouse suite, yung mommy ni Cora is she's emoting because it's her first birthday without her husband and she's sad, which is like something that many widows have gone through. But in her case, the way she manifests it is she insists on chartering a private plane to go to her vacation island. So it's like
Good for
it's
her.
the same, right? It's the same soil, but it manifests in different ways, just because of um, this abundance of resources that you have at your disposal. So it's fun and it's absurd, and I also like to do it.
Thank you, Bianca. How about you, Ansela? Do you any particular reason why billionaire mismo, as in like the ultimate rich people?
Okay, I did not actually think this through when I started. I was yeah, really I was watching I was watching, I think Arrow was starting at the time, or was it at season 2? And I'm like, I want to make fanfic. And and if you watch the show, you know that the main character, uh Oliver Queen, is, I think, I don't know if it's mentioned, but he's sort of a billionaire, or like the heir to some kind of fortune. So I was like, okay, let's do that. And I did not actually think this was gonna be a thing. I was just gonna put it on Wattpad, and if people wanted to read it, and it's fine. And then it sort of blew up, and so I finished it, and I'm like, I'm just gonna make this a series. And it's very interesting what you figure out when you after you write your first book, because you start thinking about, okay, why are these the choices I made, because they were not very conscious. They were just like stuff that I put in. And also, by the way, I grew up reading more or less books like this, because these were the romance books that were available in my grandmother's library. I don't know if they were my mother's books or my grandma's books, but so yeah, that's how it got started, pretty much.
And I think it starts like if when you make a decision whether you choose it deliberately or not, diba? Parang what happens is now that you've made a series and these people hang out with fellow rich people, when you start spinning off to the next book, it's also going to be another rich person. So there. Just
It's it's how
yeah,
series work. It's how
yeah.
series work.
That's what happens. Suzette, how about you? So you've written a royalty actually. So this is inherited wealth and titles and all of that. How did you start and why?
Well, I think the same with Ansela, that I got influenced by reading a lot of Harlequin, billionaire romances, royalty characters, with princes and dukes. So yeah, there was really no. I didn't think it through like Ansela. I just wanted to write. I just wanted to write something that I enjoyed reading, which was about rich people, and also it has that element for me that it's an escape. Like being rich, being that rich is like a fantasy for me. So I enjoyed reading it and might as well write about them. So I think that's why I wrote them. And then, yeah, it was a series. So again, like Ansela, I had to write book two, three, so on and so
So suddenly it's all like it's an entire royal family and it's all their kamag-anaks and their respective marriages. So for me, why did I do that? Okay, so the book that I cited is actually like a book that was based on it's like the standalone book that I wrote for a character who appeared originally as a villain. So I didn't start out writing rich people. I started out making them villains. So that was like the main as a an amateur romance writer, that was what I did. I needed a villain and I made her a rich person, a rich, confident person. So that's something that I've had to unpack actually. That why was she automatically someone to be hated just because she had money and was confident. So I wrote an entire book to sort of make it up to her and uh hopefully the way that I wrote the book is she's still kind of a horrible person, or she's still kind of she still doesn't she still thinks she's better than everyone else, but it's not because of the money, because by that I kind of wrote my way out of that by making her family poorer in the end. So spoilers, they don't have money anymore, but but the thing is she still
Top
is
out.
the way. Yeah, sorry. And then I realized that okay, I actually am not writing rich people the way that other people are, which leads to my next question. How rich are the characters that we've written? Like how rich are they? So I'll start because leading in from my original answer, from my answer to the previous question, is so I'm not rich myself. I like watching these depictions of people who live comfortably and have a lot of money. But when I wrote Love Your Frenemies, it was an outsider's view of people. And I put all these things there like country club because I was like a guest in a country club setting and other people were members, and I sort of saw like what the dynamic was, but I wasn't an insider. I didn't really realize until later the kind of money involved. And actually, what that means is the way that I've written my book, I realized that they're not very rich. Yung, diba? They're not very, the people in this book, they're not very rich. So they're country club members. So there's like, they can afford like a yearly membership to the country club, and they have meals there, but they still have a lot of debt. They don't own very lots of land everywhere. They're pretty much running sort of like medium-sized companies, but they're not ultra rich, but it's still rich enough that they can have access to places and people and have nice things, and people respect them more because that's how it is here. But I realized yon as I was going through this and I was reading your books, like my characters are kind of not very rich compared to your characters. So Carla, how rich are your characters?
Grabe. What a place to start.
Sorry.
uh, there's definitely like a mental ranking in my head of like on the rich scale, and of course the Aritz family is on top. They're the
Yes.
kumbaga uber rich. That's them. And I kind of I understand what you're saying about how you know about certain things, but you're not really in the circle. Like I've had opportunities to see what real rich people are like, and they are ridiculous, honestly. Um, but I guess like in terms of how rich my characters are, like I said, I would rank the Aritzes at the very top. And for the how she likes it characters, we usually what happens with me when it comes to the amount of money or influence that my characters have, I base it on real people. Real people, like for Isabel in particular, her their money peg was the C family, where it's very inclusive within us. Everything stays in the family kind of business, where you pass the company on to your heirs, and sila lang yung pwede. So that's where they are. And then for my other characters, for example, from If the Dress Fits, the Aguases have certain amount of money because the Lola lives in Ayala Heights and stuff like that. So they're a little lower than that. So there are rankings and tiers within my universe, within the Carla de Guzman universe. And
Yes.
so yeah, and you kind of have to.
Carlaverse.
I know, ang dami na kasi nila eh. So you
So
have to
someone
differentiate.
in the comments, Demented Chris in the comments is pointing out that you have royalty also. So
Right. I conveniently
yeah,
forgot. I have royalty romance as
they
well.
they own actual countries.
Yeah. And what I did for the Queen's Game in particular, the basis of Nina's family being royals of that particular island is because they own everything. Like they own most of the places, so sila na lang. Parang, which is kind of a cop out. Like the easiest way to make people royals, I guess, is to make them super rich. So yeah. Yeah. So I guess like in terms of ranking, mas mayaman Nina is richer than the Aritzes because she owns a country. So thank you, Chris, for pointing that out.
Thank you, Suzette. How rich are
I
your
like how,
characters?
can I just point out, I like how like a lot of our reasons are like, it was easier. It was just easier to do this.
It's easier. Because
You
I
can't
saw
do a
someone
lot of
else doing it, so
you can't do a lot of stuff if you don't have money, and
or
if they
yeah,
don't have money.
money, power, influence, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Suzette, how rich are your characters?
For my Filipino characters, I think the Aritzes are the I think they're the only ones I've written with Filipino characters who are the ano na uber rich. But for the ones with non-Filipino characters, I have I invented a kingdom, so they're rich because they've been the ruler of that kingdom for so many hundreds of years. And then the Duke, I wrote also a Duke character who's a Duke, and he's rich because of the generations of money, but he's also he's a venture capitalist also. So he's adding more wealth to his wealth, to the his, his family's wealth. But I wanted lang, yeah, because I wanted lang to portray someone who's also like working or passionate about something and also earning and not just relying on his family. So yeah.
Thank you, Suzette. How about you, Bianca?
So there's also a tiering with the rich people in my books. So probably at the lowest of the totem pole is the La Red family in One Night at the Palace Hotel. So my mom kasi my mom went to Assumption in the 70s. So I used to love looking at her yearbook because it's all like she was classmates with Yabuts, mga Ortigas, ganyan. Then you look at their profiles. Tapos you'll ask, oh, this girl's really pretty, ganyan. Where is she now? Tapos my mom would make chismis na, ay, her father's company was sequestered by the Marcoses, so
Okay.
they had to go to another country. So parang ganung level
Love
Yeah.
yung
story,
Dela
I love
Red.
it.
Yeah. So ganon. Parang they used to be rich, but because of mismanagement and with, forces outside of their control, by the time the story opens, they're not as rich as they used to be, but they're still in that sphere. So uh, the big conflict there is feeling na like you're sort of robbed from having your rightful place within the stars in this firmament, diba? Parang that's why they want Consuelo to marry into another rich family to regain that status. So they're at the lowest of the totem pole. Tapos the Siachos in Penthouse Suite, they are actually patterned after Gokongwei Gaisano family. So
Mhm.
especially yung background ng father nila where he started with provincial department stores. It's a very Gokongwei and Gaisano approach
That's right.
to building their empires, and then they expanded into shipping and yan. So I threw in other industries there. So they're rich but they're also working rich. That's why I really emphasize in the book na si Cora had to be trained from childhood. Now you're going to take over this. This is not all fun and games. It's a big responsibility. So I got that from reading yung stories nila, especially si Robina, diba? She talks a lot about being groomed. Tapos may chismis pa na ano, Galleria snake thing.
Yes.
Okay.
The
Tapos,
wild
syempre,
stories of the
the
rich.
wild
Yeah.
the wild stories na may kakambal and all these things. And then finally at the top, very, very top is the Aritz family. So when we were all conceptualizing Alta, a big part of the world building of how they got their wealth, we actually patterned that a bit from the Zobels. So I used to work for them way, way, way back in when I was just a fresh graduate. So I was there for a year. um, I had access to their archives, so I was able to read some of the history. So some of that is in the history of the Aritz family in Alta.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Bianca. How about you, Ansela? You're billionaires. Well, they're billionaires. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. You know, everything is so vague. It's just like they're just ridiculously rich. That's it. And by the way, the titles of my books usually have like the first three books in the three books in that series, the LA Players. I did put billionaire in there because it was like an SEO experiment. I wanted to. It was in the first book. I wanted to see. Okay, I wouldn't. I don't know if you know, but I never told anybody I was writing that book on Wattpad. Mina didn't know. None of my friends knew.
Yes.
So
Yes.
because
Are we telling
I
that
wanted,
origin story?
I wanted it to, I wanted to test the Wattpad algorithm. It was kind of a nerd thing. So I made sure the cover was like targeted to the audience and that title. Also, another reason why I have billionaire in the title is because there are people who do not want to read this kind of romance, and which is fair, and I don't want them accidentally picking it up because life is short. You should only read the books that you like, and that was an SEO experience. So I just followed that through with the three books. But generally, it's all very vague. They're ridiculously rich. They have billions. Of course, at the time I was just learning to write, and I had no idea like what $1 billion meant. So I was just, yeah, this is fine. And then later, like, you learn things. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's just weird. So that is, I guess that's the answer to my question, to the question. Mina has disappeared, but hello. Okay, this is
She's still here in voice, supposedly,
yeah,
just
but
not
she's
in
on this.
face.
Mina, have you abandoned? She doesn't want to answer. Oh yeah, she answered her question already. No, it's
Yeah,
probably I'm sorry, I'm producing now. It's probably
technical issues.
internet problem because we live it. That's the funny thing. It's like you may be like the richest person in the country, but
Right.
when the
Your
internet
internet
goes
just goes
down, the
crap.
We're all
internet
the
goes
same.
down.
The great equalizer is your
Right?
internet.
It's equalizer. I mean, if you're rich, you could probably move somewhere um that has fiber, but
But
that
then
still
why
goes
would
down.
you?
It's ridiculous. Welcome to the
Yeah,
Philippines, ladies and
true.
gentlemen.
Yeah.
This is why we write rich people. They don't have these problems.
Or they still have these problems, but it's funnier because
Yeah,
They can just
the
it's
stakes
call
are
funny.
different,
Manny.
completely different.
Can you
Pero
call
I
Manny?
do.
There's no internet.
Yeah,
Please,
Ganun
man,
lang.
I have no
Facundo,
internet here.
paki-deliver ng internet dito, please.
Right.
or
Kawawa man sa
something.
pundo.
This is so
Anyway, so
unacceptable.
huh?
Ganun lang.
But
This is so
I just
unacceptable. Where's
realized,
my internet?
where's my internet? Bring it back. Come on. Anyway, I mean, another thing, diba? Like if you have like people to work these things for you, you don't have to think about like how the
Right.
internet works or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, as you have to be resourceful, uh, to be able to to be able to even just do your work. It's not just like fun and games. Anyway, we do have other questions. I'm just gonna go on with that. So here we go. What problems do you encounter as an author when writing these characters?
Oh
Um,
boy.
yes. Who wants to go first?
Let's just same order na lang as last time, as
I
always.
I don't remember the order. Sorry. Just
Sige, I was first, so I will go
okay.
first.
Okay.
I really
All right.
want to
Go on.
get the easy
One,
answers out.
Carla.
Problems you encounter. I think one of the biggest problems of writing rich people is explaining why they're rich. Especially in this country where sometimes like being a certain kind of rich people may implication of not great things. So you really have to think about like how they got their money, where it came from. I remember nga for the Aritz family, like over Mary Grace, you were really discussing like how to avoid certain pitfalls in the family, in how they made their money, especially given that it's supposedly a business that's been around for as long as they have, and like in this country, it's not easy to survive for so long. So parang one of the bigger challenges I think of writing a rich character is that backstory, that explanation. Na, na I don't think like I in for a lot of books that I've read set in the States or outside of the country, I don't think they explain it quite as deeply as we have to. I don't know. I don't know if that's not a fact. That's just something I've observed. Parang we have to explain more. Like we have to justify why this character is rich. Versus yun nga, siguro Tanya, your experience is different kasi I think your characters are in LA, tama ba? So parang
Yep.
like yeah, so like the backstory is different, and I think that's the bigger challenge here. Yun. Yeah. So someone in the comments says not good things is a severe understatement in this country. Correct. Yeah. So one of the bigger challenges yun. Hi Mina.
Hi, thanks for some I might do that. It happens. Yeah.
If you thought you would get out of answering the next questions, you are so wrong.
You're sorely mistaken.
We know where you live.
Sorry,
Just
please
kidding.
continue. Problems. Problems
Okay.
for an yes, sorry. Okay, what problems do you encounter as an author when writing these characters? Okay, I'll answer. I'll answer because I skipped out. My internet made me skip out. Okay, so the problems that I've encountered as an author writing this is first of all, as you start learning about where money comes from, you kind of it becomes difficult to be writing a character who's rich in this country and doesn't have like isn't accountable in some way or responsible for certain things, the exploitation of certain people. And that's why so it's interesting that when I started writing rich people, I apparently set my bar quite low. That yun yeah, apparently they're not super rich. They're successful entrepreneurs and business people, but they're not rich to the level of being responsible for the exploitation of thousands of people, or generations of suffering. So that was a good thing. But as I started writing more characters, I started realizing that I liked writing characters who had a say in business. Like if I was writing somebody who had a role in this company, I wanted her to have the power to actually do things. But so if you notice, like I think my most recent sort of CEO, but not yet. And that was my out pa nga. She was not yet a CEO. Yung Alexa Lorenzo in So Forward is part of like this family who I also had an inspiration. It was a family with that I had worked for years ago with a lot of like industries. Their family was in a lot of industries, but actually they were not number one in any of those industries. They were like number three, number four, and as a family owned like conglomerate, when they were discussing this, it was very clear from the CEO's perspective that they didn't need to be number one because that entailed the kind of business of doing business that would undercut certain people that would, and I'm not saying that they weren't doing that, just that they had no desire to be number one at the expense of certain things. So I found that really interesting, but at the same time you don't consider them like number one in anything, but they were in all of these industries. So I kind of modeled it on that. And yeah, so that's a problem that you have as an author when you're writing rich people. Yes. Anyone else?
So same for me. Two basic problems. The first thing is ethics. So yun nga, how do you get this rich ethically? And I think it's very highly unlikely that you can get very wealthy in an ethically correct manner. So even if you are doing well now, in your history there is probably a piece of land that got seized, or some competitors who were thrown under the bus or something like that. So the ethics is always very thorny, and that's always back of my mind when I write about rich characters. The second thing, which is a challenge, but also what makes it more interesting for me when I write about them, is the moral compass. Because when you have that level of resources and influence and power, a lot of things don't apply to you anymore. So laws, consequences, they don't really apply. So it's very interesting to write these characters, but make sure that they do have this moral compass and they have the principle. And how do you establish that? Why do they have that sense of justice, even if everything was handed to them on a silver platter, right? So yun. So I think that's something that I also learned from reading a lot of historicals. So you have a lot of stories na this duke who owns vast tracts of land in England, but he was abandoned as a child and his father was distant, and that's why he has this, this chip on his shoulder and this sense of empathy for the poor. So something like that, you add something in their backstory that makes them more relatable, even if all things considered, when you look at the bottom line and the net worth, there's really nothing relatable there.
Thank you, Bianca. I think yung based on what we're sharing is like we are thinking about it, but it's like this is beyond us. I mean, this is a thing that is not it's not one person deciding this. It's not one industry, it's not one country. It is like all over. So we can talk about it and we can try to work it into our books. But that doesn't mean it won't exist beyond, like, even if we changed our books. So yeah, how about you, Ansela? Problems writing billionaires as an author?
Okay, a comment though, because from what you've told me, it's more or less the same thing with me. What's interesting is when somebody says, "So, oh, what's the problems you encounter when writing this trope or that trope in a romance book?" This is probably the only question where the problem isn't the writing, the craft thing. It's like you have to think about things like the ethics of your character, whatever, and Ah, it's very interesting that I just realized why I specifically like books written by people of color about this sort of thing. Like it tends to be more interesting because you're from a position of we are usually the ones who are the victims of colonization, like the people in America writing the like Batman movies or the Tony Stark movies or the comics. I don't know if they think of these things like, this guy built his empire on selling weapons of war that has killed maybe millions of people. So nobody stands up in Comic Con and asks them this question. But we are people from the Philippines, which is you know not the fanciest of countries, and we are people of color. So we think about these things, not in the same way that you know like the white authors, white American authors writing Regency romances, which
Right,
by the way I
exactly.
love, and I would have been writing, except I don't really know anything about history, which is why I just ended up doing this. So yeah. These dukes, these, even if they're not dukes, even if they're just lords or whatever lowest, because their money isn't really tied to their title. Some of them, some dukes are poor, some earls are super super rich, but basically the wealth of the elite in England at the time came from colonization and slavery. So
Mhm.
I can sort of put that to the side and enjoy these books, because it's a little far from me, because like England never colonized the Philippines, but I am aware.
They
And so
tried, but
in a lot of books, royalty romances, regency romances, or similar trope, books with similar tropes, it's you have that idea. This is something you think about. And there are authors like Regency romance authors who do think about these things and are starting to write it in these stories, and that's that's progress. But I don't know, I can still enjoy them. And but my thing is, like, it's very interesting that who are the authors that actually have to answer these questions and to
right.
actually think about these questions. I'm pretty sure authors of like billionaire romances or royalty romances have to answer the ethics question more often than the people writing the um Iron Man movies. I'm pretty sure. I'm
Yes,
Right.
almost sure.
so interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
And considering, like, this is why I make my my billionaires extra ridiculous, because they don't actually exist in real life. The benevolent billionaire doesn't exist the same way that benevolent vampires don't exist. So it's just, it is a thing that makes you, it's a romance. Okay, that's all actually also part of it. And anyway, these are the things I figured out as I kept writing, because nothing really teaches you about writing books than actually writing books.
true.
So yes.
and and you mentioned historicals that have essentially that trope, right? Which is the person with power and influence and money because they have land or whatever. Um, those are popular here also because we have that. We get it. We understand
Right.
the dynamic between the super rich, which is this person that they were just born into, and then us, which is like, how do we get in on that? Only through marriage, right? Like, there's no, like, we understand that there is no amount of work that you can do really
Right.
to ever to
Get there.
ever
Yeah.
Attain that
attain
level.
that, or and that's why we have tropes, and that's why we wanted to discuss this in our podcast, because we have that in our soap operas, in our teleseries all the time, like like somebody dies and you find out you're a rich person, like yung it's a we
Right.
really connect.
The
We
dream.
really connect. Yes, because almost like the generation, because of generations of stuff, we understand that we cannot reach that state with work. It's not gonna happen.
Right.
It really
Yeah.
won't.
True.
So so yeah, so it's like something we understand, even if we never live
Mhm.
there, and even if it's happening in a different time with different people. But yeah, we understand it. Suzette, how about you? Problems as you.
Wala naman.
Uh,
Walang problema.
I'm
Yes.
fine. How
Next
are you?
question, please.
So,
Okay lang naman kung hindi pinoproblema to.
I think only if it's like inherited wealth, like what they do with that wealth. I mean, hindi naman nila kasalanan if they, I mean, in a sense na, yeah, they were born into that kind of money, but what my character does, how he is, um, with what he does with that money. So and also so pag actually yeah, even with yung mga self-made billionaires na. So yung ethics also like how far did they go to get that to earn that kind of money. So those are the things I think about it.
I just want to say
I
when
think
ano,
mabenta talaga
when
yung fries.
no, I
Mabenta
just want to
talaga
say
ang
when
french fries. It's
no, when Ansela was talking about Tony Stark and si Batman, tapos inisip ko nga, you know, the Batcave and all of the tools and the stuff that Bruce Wayne has, like how many bonuses were cut to fund the Batmobile? How many,
Yeah.
right?
Sino
How
You know,
hindi
I
many
just
bibigyan
salaries
for
Kitty,
him
would
I
to get
just
the
happen?
thought of this.
Batmobile?
If that Batcave is really that secret, what happened to the people who built them?
I
Yes,
know.
I
And
mean,
Vincenzo,
European history tells us they
were
were
they ever heard
killed.
from
Vincenzo.
again?
they were killed.
Vincenzo style.
I'm so glad we're asking the important questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, diba? How many salaries weren't increased for years? Para Batman can have all of these different tools to throw around and not retrieve, diba?
It's interesting now. I wonder now if
Somebody
they've been
reverse
asked that
engineered those
ever.
tools yet? Like, scavengers after a fight. It's like, ooh, he
Yeah,
dropped his
what
belt.
does
That's
this
true.
do?
Ang daming may alam. Ang daming may alam. Ang daming involved eh.
It shouldn't be a secret.
Oh, I actually made a joke when Suzette said walang problema, but actually, the fact is we don't have ito yung thing, and I don't know if I'm just talking about our group. It's that we know, right? Like we know there's an issue this kind of rich and writing about their ethics. We know that, even if it's not mentioned in the book. I kind of
Mhm.
trust that there this is the world that we live in, and the choices you make as an author are choices made knowing the real world. Yan. Sorry, did my internet did my internet go bad? I kind of lost you for a second, but yeah, anyway, I as I was saying, I joked about this not being a problem, but our books can actually not mention this being a problem, but as people we actually know.
Yeah.
Uh
Yep.
yeah. So it's not something, I think it's not some, and that's why, and to add to what Ansela said, that authors who are authors of color writing this, their books are more interesting to me because they know they know the reality
Right.
of this kind
Yeah.
of thing. And even if they've written the book, even if it's not addressed explicitly, the choices that they've made in the book sort of assure you that they are aware of what how difficult it is in real life. Yeah. So I think everyone has answered that question. So I would just like to remind everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to killig.pub/YouTube, or if you're here on YouTube, hit subscribe. And also click on the bell so you can be notified when we have a new episode. We're almost at 600 subscribers as of
Yay!
today. So thank you so much. That's fun.
Let's
Thank you
do
so much,
romance
everyone. I hope
class.
we're providing interesting things for you. Next question, please.
See, if we were rich, we could buy more subscribers. I'm just
We could
saying.
buy more friends,
We could buy
honestly.
subscribers.
Right. Subscribers, friends.
Subscribers,
I'd
And
get a better
friends,
Views.
internet
love.
connection, but anyway. I love that's my favorite. That's my favorite rich
how
person
much is PLDT?
possible quote.
Classic. Classic, classic.
Is it on sale? Is it for sale? It's like, can we just
Okay,
you buy
I'm
an
seeing some questions in the chat. We'll get to that after our program. How critical should we be of how rich our fictional characters are? So we kind of answered that, but if you wanna like add anything to it, like I I don't hate my rich characters. Although I did what I hated was I planned a series that had politician characters and I hated them. I started to hate them and and did not continue my series about them. So yeah, I mean
which one
I
is
think
this,
my best
Mina?
dress. Oh, I have like a book where yung si Senator Alano was supposed to have his own book. And then no,
Ah,
like
okay.
no, I don't yeah, I
Uh,
don't want to anymore.
He's cute, but his world is not cute. So
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
like it. And then I was thinking like I'll have him like lose his next election so he'll not be a senator. But even then, like yuck, former senator. Like no, like,
is that better?
I can't.
No.
Yeah, I really can't. I could not. So I'm very critical of my characters, but actually not about how rich they are, but other things. And it's really about
Yeah.
uh right now I don't like politicians, so there. Yes. Next.
Oo. I think that yeah, I agree with Mina na it's hard to write characters that you're not affectionate about. Like all of the characters I write, I have to like them and be affectionate for them because I have to care about what happens to them. Otherwise, I would torture them
Right.
like many traditional literature types do. Maybe they don't like their characters. Who knows? But yeah, but I think the criticality or criticism occurs in the back end while you're writing the book. And actually, the manuscript that I'm working on right now, which is book 3 of the One Night series, has a character na he grapples with how his family built that wealth because his dad is not very ethical, medyo sleazy, friends with the people that Mina doesn't like. So that's part of he's like interrogating his legacy and all of the privilege that it afforded him, which is not fun, but I think it needed to be done.
Yeah, does anyone have anything to add? I mean, I think we've been critical of our characters and have put them through the test here, but yeah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, okay, I'll go next. I'm just volunteering. Um, so how critical should we be? I think we should be critical of like everything we do naman. When we write, it's not just how rich our characters are, but how powerful they are, power imbalances, pretty much anything, like how you portray certain types of people. Uh, but this is not something that you can generalize like everybody should be super critical of this thing because authors the authors come from different places and there are just things we can't help. Like I said, we are from a not very fancy country and we are people of color, so we tend to be critical about a lot more things and we tend to be critical of the way we write a lot more, I think, because we do not have a lot there are a lot of privileges that we don't have. So I think it's you'll figure it out. Uh, I had no idea what I was doing when I was writing my first book, and I just started thinking about it like during the editing, and then my second book, and like they say, you don't actually a lot of times your book's theme doesn't really you don't really know what it is until you're like done, and oh, I was writing about this pala. So anyway, so that I guess that's my answer. I don't know if it.
Anyone else?
I'll jump in. siguro, although, okay, the book I'm thinking about specifically hasn't been published yet, but in the book that I'm currently working on now, parang the villain uses money as control over other characters. And uh, that's, I mean, and I don't find myself explaining why. Like, basta bad siya and ginamit niya yung pera as a tool to control other people. And it can just be that if you're writing like villains in your story. But I guess in terms of criticizing your characters, it's more like what do they do with the money and the power and the influence that they're given? I think that's the more important question. Because of course, like if see Kimmy Domingo, I felt from Love Your Frenemies. Like I really liked her because you were supposed to hate her, but then when you read her story, you actually find yourself understanding her. And I think that's when critics being critical of your own characters works in your favor. Yun, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank
Kimmy
you,
competence
Carla.
porn.
Yeah.
Yeah, super competence porn nga
Super
siguro.
competence porn.
Yeah,
Like,
pero yun din, it required thinking about it din because that's true. Parang, yes, mayaman siya, bad siya, period.
right.
And then, yeah, as what happens when you're writing, when you like inadvertently write a series, diba? Suddenly you think about why you
You did it
characterize
that way,
people a
right?
certain way, and then you start thinking that they had real lives and an actual history, and they ended up at some point. So yeah, so just
I'm very curious. Mina, you mentioned about politicians.
yes.
Uh, I'm very curious because like we have this weird thing about politicians in this country because
Right.
it's like the worst ones are always end up in power. Like there are an occasional like ones that you like who is not terrible, but they just
Her eye roll was
disappear. They don't get to where we want them to be. It's always the
right.
really worst ones. So
because
parang
they
it's
because anyone with ethics will stop at a certain point.
Yes, they will not
Hindi
be
nila
re-elected.
kakayanin.
And then
so
they
what
will
I'm
go to
saying
the
is like
private sector.
I thank you for bringing that up because I did not really think of it. I'm like, oh nga, I would have a really hard time writing about politicians. Being a Filipino living in this country, it's
Oh,
Right.
ooh.
I had like a West Wing ish thing planned, like with an
Oh.
entire staff, and I had
Yeah.
research. So we had like there's a sub question here about research. People were offering like actual staff in Congress and Senate, and then I was doing the work, and then after I was like, I don't care about any of you. I don't care if I get this right. I don't
Sorry,
care about
Senator.
I don't care about any of you. I don't want to know what it is you do with your
Right.
day.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yun eh. And then of course you start thinking maybe you'll do a better version of it. And but you'll still like it's still like a choice to immerse yourself in those thoughts and feelings.
Right.
Na I just chose happiness for myself.
Yung
I
ano
just
eh,
decided
yung
I'll make my life
suspension.
easier.
Yung suspension of disbelief required to make a better version of politics work. It's also difficult for the reader and the writer.
It's like, diba? And then imagine like finishing the book and then talking about it, asking people to buy it. Like just thinking of that,
Defending your
parang
choices on a
I
podcast.
know
Right. Right.
exactly. It just seemed like a terrible life choice.
Oh, by the
So
way,
I
this is about rich people but it's actually
Yeah.
not just about the money, right? It's about the power that
Right.
that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because
Because
you can't be rich without power. Lalo na
but I'm
hindi
pretty
job.
sure somebody, it's not that it's again, we're talking about these things and how critical we are, and I think people can still write it. Of course it exists, it's
Yeah.
popular, it's entirely possible to write it. We're just probably talking about our boundaries and our
Where the
boundaries are
lines
good.
are.
Very
Yeah.
important.
Oh yeah,
Very
I
important.
remember writing in a private plane ride in my first
Mhm.
book. Again, I wasn't really consciously thinking of
The
things. And I
carbon
realized, oh my
footprint,
God, the
Ansela.
carbon footprint, this is terrible.
How could you?
And I think in the editing, it's I don't know. It was like I tried to make it, but wala talaga ito. It was there. It was an important part of the. If I took it out, I'd like have to think of, and I'm lazy, so.
Yeah,
But
our
no,
Yeah,
I mean, no,
choices.
no,
sorry,
no carbon
environment.
footprint was produced in the writing of this book. I will just
Disclaimer.
console myself with that. But I did not answer this yet in the first question because it's like why rich people? Because I think I needed to answer the other questions first before adding this. It's like there's like what that's one of the biggest problems in the world is it's not Thanos, it's not whatever alien or magical nemesis you can come up in a it's actually inequality, right? And it's and I think the reason why these books, like books about royalty, books about like rich people or whatever, they're basically only relevant because there is inequality, because
Mhm.
this is what we have to deal with in our lives. And when you're in a relationship with someone, this is stuff that's also there. Like say you're a single mother of like 3 kids. You're not just gonna marry any guy na you'll have to also feed because you have your kids to think
Right.
about, right? It's economics is always there. So again, like what I think it was Carla who mentioned, like if one of them or both of them are super rich, this is just makes things easier. You don't have to think about it and you can focus on other things. In my case, it's again because of all the books that I were the first romance books that I read. It's like you make one of them like super rich. So when you show the relationship, you show that that's not really what matters. It's what matters is the abs. I mean, the
The
honesty,
heart
the
underneath.
honesty, be having stuff in common, being able to make each other happy, because
Right.
that is the one thing that I was doing consciously when I like I try to avoid like because it's the I try to avoid the rich person buying the other one like all the things,
Mhm.
because it's like it's boring,
That's yeah.
I think there are people who have never read any of the books we write about these themes, and they think that oh it's about a poor girl who meets a rich guy and
And
he buys her
fixes
a lot of stuff and
everything.
they just get married. It's like that is
Yeah.
like the most boring thing ever.
Right.
Diba? It's because
And it's
this
been
is a
done.
this
Like
is a
we've seen it. We watch the
this is
Been
what
movies.
done.
We
happened. That is what happens in real life, actually,
Mm.
diba? It's like some, your family's in poverty. Some rich white guy offers to marry
Notices
you.
you.
That,
Right.
I have another rant about that. Uh,
That's I think
That's a
beyond that's
different,
like a
I don't know.
sub it's a
yeah,
sub
it's another,
issue
yeah.
within this larger issue. But
I mean, because
yeah.
some of
All
us, we are middle class or whatever, and we can laugh about this. But for some people, this is a real thing. This is a thing that they have to deal with, and yun, and every time I see like something that's obviously like like mail order brides or whatever, I'm like I just the one thing I think of is like I just really hope at least they're happy, especially the
Right.
the disadvantaged person that is like
Yeah.
you know so yes, that is it is an opportunity to show like this is a romance. We all write romance, so I use it as an opportunity to show that it's not really, that's just window dressing the
Mm.
wealth and whatever. What really matters again is honesty.
and
Abs.
abs.
and
Honestly,
and
abs. Maybe the heart.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
maybe
think
Donay.
he makes you laugh, sure. That's a plus.
as somebody naman writing with the community and also managing the community and being aware of of what we're writing and that it adds up. Like now we have over 100 books that we've written. It's just more interesting to me to be able to see that once you remove the money problem, meaning the lack of money, you
Mm.
can tell the stories become more about other things, because truly a lot of romance is about, diba, marrying into a rich family and the issues that are about that. And tuloy, you don't get to talk about other things like what like what if you're a CEO, what if you're what if you're etc etc. So yun, just it's just another way to remove like a step that it's like a step that Philippine media is stuck on. So the stories today are very similar, especially with regard to women, because
Yeah.
uh the, if you're kind of if you're hi hi yes
Hi.
tita
What?
yeah.
Tayo.
So
I-break lahat.
that's what's so it's a reason, it's a reason to be able to tell a different kind of story, because you've gotten rid of one problem, which is the lack of money and access and power. So you get to tell stories of us in positions and what you would do with that power.
Hmm.
Yon, I think. Okay, let's go to the Q&A because we have past 1 hour with the program, and
Wow.
and daming issue pero
Huh?
kailangan
So, too
yeah,
many layers.
oo. So how about some questions? Yes. Oh, what's your from Comic Ninja? Thank you. What's your opinion on the sociology idea that rich people dramas are popular to make ordinary and poor people feel better about themselves? At least we're not like them fighting all the time. I definitely think there's something like if I'm going if my life sucks and I'm going to spend my time doing something, I really would like something bonkers and not
Right.
looking like my life. That's why it to some degree that's why we went through an entire class where there was a guideline to not write a writer main character like it's actually stepping out it's really stepping out. I think though the teleserye thing is a it's more of a local media uh thing that they're doing, that they really want a nation of poor people to fixate on on something other than themselves, because what will be awakened by knowing how bad it is for you for real. So there is that. Yes, I do
Yep.
think that as
Yeah.
yeah.
I was
And
gonna
yeah.
say then, like, for teleseries, like, I really hate, maybe hate is a strong word, but I notice and dislike when they do scenes na, oh, look at us, we're a poor family, but we have each other. Like, that's enough to feed you and send your kids to school. I think it's very, like what Mina said, it's very manipulative and it's very telling na it comes from big media, this message na let's be, let's be satisfied being poor. I'm not saying that being poor is bad, but let's also be realistic na money will solve a lot of problems, right?
Will make
Having
you happy.
right, I mean, you don't have to be
You can
extremely rich,
afford
but
fiber with money.
yeah,
I'm
having
so sorry I
protein,
don't have fiber.
having some
That's
protein,
because you're
having
poor,
kids to
Mina.
go to, right? But yeah, but there, you really do see it being sold na, oh, and at least we're not rich and we're not fighting each other like this rich family na kapitbahay natin sa pangako sa'yo or whatever. Yeah, I just find it manipulative, and I think there is a smarter way of portraying that. Like, what is good about being in this certain social class versus another, without having to sell that same message all the time.
I can't
Mhm.
actually answer this question because I, I don't actually watch. I haven't. They tend to be all right. The nature with what we call the soap operas here, or teleseries. They tend to be very emotional,
Yeah.
which I think this is why I have a difficult time watching it. Because of, like, uh the way my I will not discuss my, but it's a thing with my brain. Parang, like, what's going on? It's like it's making me anxious. So, and there's a reason for that. Because apparently a lot of people who watch these shows are doing other stuff. Like, you're
Mhm.
Yes,
cooking there,
yes.
so you should be able to. It's very interesting. Somebody
Understand.
explained this to me, and it makes so much sense. They should be able to make sense of
I
it
think
even just by
I think
listening to it.
again it's I think but we know people who write for these things. It's not them. It's not
Mm.
them they're just also part of the system that's doing this. And also, like, I don't want to say that, yeah, we understand it's manipulative, but then there's the other side where they portray us as suffering and poor all the time for the audience of international,
Romanticizing poverty.
for
Right.
the
Yeah.
audience of international people,
Film
who
festival,
now,
ano.
yeah, who now suddenly only see us as poor
Poor
people
people,
and
right?
victims, and will not trust us, for example, with with careers, like will not want to be our boss, will not want to work with us as their bosses, because they don't value us in the same way. So it's like, wow, like like
A lot of things in that one in that one
yeah,
word.
I mean, yeah.
Mm.
We kind of want, but we're working with specific audiences here. So Romance Class, the books that we write, Ansela's stories on Wattpad. She has a gazillion followers, by the way, and people like, and a gazillion readers of her stories. So these are specific audiences that we're catering to, and they have specific needs. And yun, we're just like acknowledging that we're aware of what it is that we are giving them. And yun. Yeah. Do we have another question?
Okay, hang on.
Sorry,
Okay,
Let's
the
that's
see
producer
others.
is
interesting.
also in the panel.
It's okay. I need to learn to do this.
Any from Chris, any specific personal experience that have found their way into your rich people novels, especially yung mga I can't believe they can actually do that. Please. Do you have any? Oh wait.
Oh, ako meron.
Isip ako.
Wait,
Yes. Do you have?
I remember in my in my Alta story, Ali and Logan have to go to Vienna to do something for Mamita. And first of all, how lucky that Ali already has a visa. How random. She has a visa, nagkataon lang. And there was a part where they both check in at the first class, and someone who read the book had commented saying, "Wait lang, why don't they have their own entrance? Why don't they have their own like special camera whatever, like special line? This why don't they have this private whatever?" Because I had read that the royals, the English royals, they don't fly private; they fly commercial. Um, and so, parang that was my conscious decision that the Aritzes are not better than the Cambridges. So they have to fly first class like every normal person. And yeah, and I remember like in particular there was one time I had to go on a business trip, and it was mga ganun nga na pa first class peme. And the nicest thing about it was going to the lounge and eating the arroz caldo in the iya too. So there's like
Arroz caldo.
yeah, I don't know why, but it was a thing that people kept telling me when I was about to experience that for the first time. You should try the arroz caldo. It's so good. It's like the arroz caldo in Naiya Terminal 2 in the PAL Lounge in particular.
So
It's
this is
so
PAL.
good. Yeah, this is
For
PAL.
future reference.
For future reference, like if you want good arroz caldo in an airport, the PAL Lounge has you covered. And it's like
You just
it's
need to buy a
arroz
first
caldo.
class ticket.
Yeah, you just need to buy a first class ticket or
For
like
arroz
one of
caldo.
those cards.
Yes, for arroz caldo.
But yeah, it's a thing. It's apparently a thing na parang masarap siya. But like it's normal. How can you mess up arroz caldo? But anyway, yun. Yeah, that's my rich people thing.
Actually, somebody did mess up arroz caldo for me once. I think it was
Was it
forgot which
Oh
places.
no.
I think they put too much sesame oil in it, and all I could taste was the sesame. Yeah, apparently you can mess it up. I was so mad. I was like,
I didn't
please
think that
remove
was
this from my
possible.
site. Please remove this from my site. I will
Anyone? Does
answer this.
anyone? Yeah.
I don't know that I have actually. Okay, I do like the stuff that I write. I do have some personal, things from my personal experience, but most of it has nothing to do with the rich people or rich people's experience, because I am not rich. I don't have a lot of rich friends. I do not know anybody named Santi. Apparently, that's a thing. Uh, I really don't. And so yeah, I just like writing any book. You have some of your experience in there, but I don't think I have any like rich people. Maybe some stuff, but it's like not from my personal experience, but stuff I saw in movies and like people or news, things from the news.
Right. And there's also little things like uh, the boss can't ride in the passenger seat, he has to be in the back seat. Like little things like that na parang you observe in movies but you don't actually know it's a thing in real life.
Parasite,
Somebody just
gano'n.
told that. Oh, someone just told me that na parang it's a thing like an actual boss doesn't sit in the front seat, he sits in the back seat. So parang, interesting.
Mhm.
Yun.
I've been told like somebody somebody talking about books, like when you start naming brands, you start
Right.
revealing what you think is rich and what isn't, and it sort of inadvertently puts your characters in tears. Uh, so I've tried to avoid doing that because my God, I don't know anything about their
Yeah.
work. I
Right.
don't know what
Oh,
much.
that's one
Even
of
better.
that's one of the difficulties I've had to Google the. I've
Yeah,
had
I
to
mean that's
Google
the
what is
research.
the most expensive lingerie, like what is the most
Uh,
expensive whatever, because again it's so very vague and I don't really have any experience with this. I just, oh, okay, La
but
Perla, fine.
so
It's like
but
we'll use that.
a personal experience that I've had is actually not in a rich person book, that I put in, but um one time in college, I got stranded during a flood and had to stay overnight at the house of a like a like a guy. Hindi ko siya friend from college. Like we just kaklase ko lang siya in one subject. Hindi kami super friends, but he had a car and could get to, because I studied in Ateneo and lived in Las Piñas. So imagine trying to get home during a
Oh my
storm,
god.
stranded, and then he lived near he lived near Las Piñas. So I was able to get a ride with this guy, but at some point the floods would not allow us to go past, I think Green Meadows lang. Like we couldn't go past Green Meadows, but we could make it to his tita's house, and she would let us stay there overnight until the rains would subside. And then when I got there, she had everything ready for me. And I put this in Fairy Tale Fail. So
Right.
like Lucas's tita, like when they were stranded during the storm, they made their way to Lucas's tita's house, and it was like, oh my God, like I had my own room, I had my own clothes, i had I had food, I had everything, and then somebody would just bring stuff to the room for me, and fresh towel, everything, and
Wow.
she didn't know who I was. She barely interacted with me, as in I barely interacted with her pamangkin, who was the person na nakisabay ako. But it's a thing. I'm sorry, if you've never gone through this before, it's a thing that it's like a rite of passage when you live far and then there's a storm. Suddenly everyone's your friend.
Right.
suddenly suddenly everyone's your friend, and actually you do suddenly name their relatives who can take you in, will take you in, and that can turn out to be a terrible horror novel. but but this is actually but yun, I was just blown away because again I was like this not rich student who couldn't get home in the rain, and then suddenly I was being pampered like a princess, and then I had to go home the next day. So
Oh.
Like, boo.
What is this? Where am I?
oh nga, like what the
Natawa ako,
Yun.
Mina, because it's like you were stranded. You had to find shelter in his tita's house. I'm like, oh, you have a chaperone.
yeah.
It's there's not
But
nawala yung
yun nga,
no, because
like there was no,
I read a lot of Regency novels. Like, oh, my
I mean,
chaperone.
it could have been any other kind of novel, but
Yeah.
but they didn't. We didn't. we didn't talk. He didn't interact with, as in he was given his own room, and I don't know, like he had his own stuff, and then di na kami nag-usap that night. As in they just said, okay, like the next day bumaba na yung baha, you can go now. Okay, I will go home.
Okay, bye.
Goodbye.
I
Thank you
hope
po,
you
tita.
enjoyed this super random thing.
Yes, so that was like so bizarre to me, and I put it in the book. Yun. Anyone else have a rich people encounter that they actually put in the book? I think Bianca, you would have like something from as
Tinuro.
you.
Nakwento ko in during our Alta podcast, nakwento ko yung the guy that I used to work for before, and then his son wanted a certain model of cell phone that Globe was gonna give us on a Thursday, but that was a Tuesday. So I told my boss, "Oh, if you just wait until Thursday, the phone will be delivered to your house." And then my boss was like, "No, he wants it now." So we have to go to Nokia, kasi it was Nokia days pa, and buy the phone for his apo. So, ganon. So, but that wasn't in a book. A lot of the stuff that I've actually experienced working for this guy are so wild. I can't put them in the book kasi nobody would believe. There was one na he told me personally, parang he had an orange plantation in Mindanao, and then the workers went on
Sorry, I
strike.
laughed.
Like striking workers, he got pissed off. He had all the trees bulldozed.
Oh my god.
And I was like, and he was
Stress.
laughing, like, ha ha ha, gago kayo, mag-strike kayo dyan, I'll bulldoze all your trees. So I was so shocked. Like, oh my god, this is the guy I'm working for.
Oh
Yun.
no.
Okay.
There you go. There
Yeah.
you go.
And that
I
ends
think
our book.
I think we have time. We have time for one more question. We don't want to go over time right now, but apparently there's a lot to talk about when we're talking about people.
Too many layers.
Yeah, but if there's yes, thank you for asking that question. And yes, my gosh. So yeah, okay. If there's no other question, I think Morty. Arky wants
I
Morty.
think they're just yeah, there we go. They just want more tea.
Just gonna
Just
name
one.
names.
Suzette. Baka may
Make
experience si
name
Suzette.
names.
Yeah, how about ano?
Well,
Naka-mute yata si
well,
Suzette. Yeah.
then, when I was
What?
practicing at VIP patient, so usually they have a tab in the clinic. So like we won't pay, they'll just settle na lang. So like their kids would come and do all those like dermatologic procedure, and they wouldn't even ask the price, and then we just like pay after may tab
Ano
sila.
sa?
And then also they of course they have bodyguard yun. Bodyguard and what else?
Yeah.
Ano yun?
Another thing that
So
I've
money is
heard.
no object.
Uh, another thing I've heard is like I've been told the version of this several times. So nakakatawa every time is that they don't ask the price exactly. So kaya I remembered they don't ask how much things are if they want it.
Get
They
it.
just take it, build them, and then they will pay it. So
Mhm.
I've heard stories of people who make custom fashion, custom shoes, custom clothes. They will they will have the thing done and then write the check. So and then whether you get paid or not, you find out if they're as rich as they claim they are.
Yun.
Oo.
Yun pa.
Because a lot of
Oo.
them probably aren't. Yeah. So yun, that was interesting to me and also like mind blowing. Another thing that's not my story, but I learned then because I was already writing at the time, so I got like shocked. Was a story from a friend who had started dating like a wealth management person
Mm.
in a bank, and we were like, wow, so who are his clients? And his clients were like, and then we were naming like rich people we knew, and then apparently no, like this person's net worth was just several million pesos, so it didn't even qualify for for this person's account. And we were like, who qualifies? How do you have a job? Who are your clients? How many
How is it?
people can
And the
actually
question,
be your client?
yeah. And
And
how did it happen that they became your like? How did they
yeah,
find you?
like what is this world that
Right.
that is your day job that apparently we know nothing about? Like we
True,
were
true.
naming like every single rich person we knew, and wala pa rin. Like nope, they're not rich enough. They're not rich enough. They're not rich. What? Okay. So yeah, and then of course as a writer I learned that okay, there are tiers to this. Some people are not as rich and some people are richer. So last question, do you feel that writing romance or romantic gestures comes easier when the characters involved have unlimited resources? I think okay, I think I've heard of this that it's actually something encouraged in some publishing houses in the Philippines because you want the happily ever after to include financial security in some way. Like you want to end the book not worried about the future of your character. So even if class and power is part of it, you kind of want even if you take your rich person down a peg and humiliate them, you kind of need to assure them that they need somebody who can yung they still have enough to get by. So yes, it does come easier when they have unlimited resources, but I think we don't need to portray them with unlimited resources, like enough resources.
Right. Yeah.
Sakto lang. We can have them be sakto lang resources.
Yeah.
How about you?
I'll answer this.
Yes.
uh, okay, so when this question came up, so I started thinking about okay, I'm just gonna stick to the three novels that I've actually finished, and I just realized like oh, out of the three, only one of them has a romantic gesture that involved like that only a rich person can do, which I will not get into because.
Is there
But the
carbon
other
Spoiler.
two
footprint
is
involved?
But the other two is like they were very the romantic gesture, like the important. It was all very simple, and I think I did that consciously, because again the whole point of putting the wealth on display is to show that it's not really what matters in a. I
Mhm.
mean, if your relationship isn't good, it doesn't matter how rich any of you are, diba?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, only two of them. I think I'm consciously trying not to, not trying to make the grand gesture an expensive one, because it's kind of boring for me.
Yeah.
It's my last one in the third book had the guy did a harana. Uh, in
Oh.
the
Oh,
outsider house, and he just got his he just got his chauffeur to play the guitar while doing it. So yun. I think the more simple gestures that requires a lot of effort
Mm.
is my thing. That is what I like. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree
that's
because I
nice.
think like if you have a rich character, a display of wealth won't be interesting to them. But then if you have a not rich character, having them be impressed by a display of wealth doesn't say something good about them too. So
Nudge
my
your
characters,
relationship, right?
right? So yung characters ko, yung kanilang romantic gestures is always small, meaningful, it's comforting. So they buy each other food, they spend time with each
Mhm.
other, they do foot spas, things like that.
Things
Um,
that matter. Okay.
things
Right.
that are in character for them. Yeah.
Ako, I'm thinking na
Somebody made a
parang,
comment.
yeah.
Okay, sige, sige. It's okay.
No, go ahead.
Go on, Carla.
No, I was thinking about like what was the bigger like grand gesture I featured in a book, and I remember in Sweet on You, Gabriel actually buys like sobrang daming carnations, but it's not a
Yeah.
grand gesture. Like inaasar niya si si Sari. So parang ako, okay, so that's because you're right. Like spending your money is boring. Like if you're a rich guy, like buying someone something super fancy, that's eh. But if you buy someone something fancy and meaningful, then it becomes nice. Like if you, I don't know if you buy them something they really wanted or something that that parang grand gestures have to have that personality in it, and it can't just be a money thing because yeah, you're right, it's boring. It's easier
Yes.
to have money, but it's
Marching
the
band though.
meaningfulness. Yeah. The meaningfulness of the gesture that really matters, regardless of if your character has money or if they don't.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
I have this conscious thing where I none of my MCs ever cook for for the guy.
Talaga?
That is my own thing.
Okay.
Because we're I don't know, it's because we're so required to, be the
Right. To
be the
learn.
cook, be
That's
the
true.
caretaker, with the so my thing is, you know what's romantic? Let him cook for you. So
Yes.
in my
Yeah,
first
that's the
book,
thing. No.
the LI, somebody actually made a comment on Wattpad. Why is this guy always offering people dinner? Because he like cooks for everyone. Because
That's
that was my
great.
thing with
It's
Thank
him.
called the
That
you.
was
love
the
language. Hello.
Yeah.
yeah, that was the thing. He it's sort of he grew up rich, but his dad was terrible, and he was sort of raised by the ranch foreman because they had a ranch,
Sure,
and
yeah.
he was sort of taught to be like very nurturing, and it sort of he was a single dad. It's sort of something his son inherited from him. So there's this part in the end where the kid just kept offering tea to his bodyguards. Like, what's going on?
See, that's
So
really
so
nice.
parang
That's
naman,
really
yeah.
Yeah.
sweet.
It's a I don't know if anybody's noticed, but that's my thing. It's like I I can cook some things, but I don't like having to cook for people because
Right.
it's just annoyed that it's so expensive. That's my own issue. So yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else have anything to add to our last question? Yeah. So if everyone said their if everyone said if everyone said it, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to everyone in the comments asking questions. And if you're viewing this as a replay, thank you also. Uh, Obviously, we have lots to talk about on this topic, and but I'm so glad that it's fun. It's fun to actually discuss it, even if we're kind of asking ourselves if we did the right thing here, if we made the right choices, or if because that's how, again, in the spirit of this is a helpful discussion, and it helps us make books that we can actually be proud of, and and really like offer to our readers, because we are catering to specific audiences and we want to be able to give them the best stuff that we can. And I'm glad, I'm always thankful to be writing with all of you. I think it's really interesting, these things that we talk about and we write about. So we'll have links to the books that we discussed in the description, and I'll probably put that on Twitter also and make a thread. So thank you, Carla, Suzette, Bianca, Ansela, also producer Tanya. Thank you, producer
Thank you
Tanya,
for
for
having me.
doing double duty. And thank you so much, everyone. So see you next
Bye.
episode. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
friends.